I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how the fuck to talk about Jurassic World 4. I spent way too long trying to decide on a punchy opening that summarizes my thoughts well, but it's just not very interesting to say. Jurassic World Rebirth wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but it's still not good and fucking boring, but at least it's not as bad as Dominion. And that's exactly how I feel. I went in with absolutely no expectations. I'd only seen trailers and actively avoided looking at reviews, just so I could have the most unaltered, genuine experience of the movie. If I had to rank it with the other Jurassic World movies, I'd say it's between the first and second in terms of quality. Not good by any stretch, but not nearly as much of a travesty as it could have been. This video is going to be a little different to what I usually make. I'm cranking this out because I'm the world's biggest Jurassic World hater, and it's my civic duty to talk about this franchise until I turn to dust. Also, I'm currently working on another video that's shaping up to being over an hour long, so I apologize for the more relaxed vibe of this video. But fear not, my 3 loyal viewers, I'll be making a part 4 whenever I can get my hands on a high quality download of Rebirth, either legally or honestly more likely, illegally. There I'll really go into detail. But for now, I'll give some things I liked and many more that I disliked. And yeah, there's scientific inaccuracies and inconsistencies that rival the bullshit of the previous entries, so get prepared for that. Oh, and spoiler warning, if you even give a shit, that is. Alright, I'll quit lollygagging and explain the problem. It's fucking boring, and that's honestly its biggest sin. There's like this opening scene introducing the giant mutant dinosaur, the D-Rex, then half an hour of boring shit, another dinosaur encounter, 40 more minutes of boring shit, another dinosaur encounter, then finally 20 minutes of boring shit, the final action scene, and then it's over. Every scene that doesn't include a dinosaur is either characters awkwardly telling each other shit about the plot, or characters awkwardly talking about each other's backstories. And by that, I don't mean explaining their own pasts, no. I mean explaining other characters' pasts. Like, we're introduced to Scarlett Johansson's character through some bum-ass shot in the car, and the dude driving just starts yapping about how she's basically a spy and how she's really good at it. And then he even mentions her mother who died of some heart issue. Like, she knows all this shit. Why is he explaining it to her? And this is how every character is introduced, through clunky dialogue explaining who they are and what motivates them in ways that no normal human would ever communicate. And it's not like it was even effective exposition, because I saw this movie all of a few hours ago and I can't even remember anyone's name. Fuck that, even during the movie, one of the main cast guys made a weird decision or had a strong reaction to something involving kids. Wait, that sounds weird. But I was confused as to why he did what he did, and my girlfriend had to explain to me that someone explained to his character that his kid died or something, and now he wants to protect children? I don't fucking know. Also, I'm not purposefully being vague here, I just genuinely don't remember what happened at this point. And this is how every non-dinosaur scene is. Boring characters talking about boring shit and being boring. It's not even a pacing problem like the other Jurassic Worlds, it's just straight up not engaging. And it makes the movie feel way longer than it is, and it doesn't help that every scene without CGI is shot in the most bland shot, reverse shot way possible. As soon as a dinosaur comes on screen, there's like a 5% chance the shot will be actually interesting or even cool looking. For obvious reasons, I can't use examples, so you'll just have to sit tight and wait for the 45-minute dissection in a few months. Although that being said, the bits with dinosaurs in them aren't actually that bad. That's not to say they're amazing by any stretch, but they're much better than anything in Dominion. I'd say the action's about on par with the Volcano Island shit in Fallen Kingdom, but doesn't quite reach the apocalyptic chaos of the original Jurassic World, which, as I'm writing this, I realize is a more than 10-year-old movie. Fucking Christ. Oh yeah, and the acting performances were just not good, which is weird because both Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali have shown that they're extremely competent actors in previous works. Johansson especially is just phoning in her performance, and she's constantly doing something with her hands. It's like she's a fucking problem child in 2nd grade that can't keep still. Neither of them seem like they give a shit, and I honestly can't blame them. It's the 4th Jurassic World movie, they probably knew it to be arse. I actually put this down to the director, Gareth Edwards, who directed the 2014 Godzilla as well as Rogue One. I mean, there's other shit, but nobody gives a fuck about those. The weakest parts of those two movies are the talking and interpersonal scenes, broken apart with standout action set pieces and the occasional cool shot. Although in saying that, Rebirth's action scenes are far worse than anything in Godzilla, let alone the final confrontation of Rogue One. But at least this shows a trend in his directing style. Shit dialogue and decent action for the most part. I'm just thankful old mate Colin's smegma-stained fingerprints are nowhere to be found, and you can bet your crusty, dusty, penile orifice I combed through the credits searching for his name. So what actually happens in this fuckfest? Well, they completely retcon everything that happened in Fallen Kingdom and Dominion through on-screen text. Not even in like a Now This news report like last time, just straight up a few sentences of text that explain all the dinosaurs in colder environments fucking died, and now they only live around the equator because the environments there mimic that of prehistoric Earth. And I don't know whether to be fucked off or happy that Dominion was basically pointless. Even the franchise itself is admitting the whole dinosaurs in the modern world thing was a stupid idea. But that means there was basically no point of the movie existing at all. Like, if you think about it, the whole point of Dominion was to save Maisie and Baby Blue from those scientists and to introduce the idea of dinosaurs in society. Well, I mean, that was just a thing that was tacked onto the end and never explored, but you know what I mean. Blue lived in the snow with her baby Beta. Dinosaurs who live in the snow all died in this movie. Blue and Beta are now canonically dead, and Dominion was pointless and never needed to happen. For fuck's sake. This movie also tries to continue with the first Jurassic World's bullshit of people are bored with dinosaurs. It doesn't really go anywhere, but it's mentioned a decent bit. Anyway, back to the plot. There's this abandoned research base on some fuck-ass island around the equator where they ran tests with crossbreeding dinosaurs, including something called the D-Rex, which murders someone in the first 2 minutes because he dropped a Snickers wrapper. Yeah, that's actually something that happens. Oh, and that reminds me that the fucking confectionery product placement gave me type 3 diabetes because of how prevalent and in your face it was. I seriously couldn't not notice that there was a logo facing the screen at all times, whether it was Heineken or M&M's. We get introduced to Scarlett Johansson's character, who I think is named Zora. She's this, spy or mercenary, apparently. Basically Chris Pratt's character, and she's hired to get DNA samples from dinosaurs to help cure heart disease? That's literally the hook. And they need samples from a Quetzalcoatlus, Titanosaur, and Mosasaur. Conveniently in the inverse order of how I just said them. Don't ask why. It's apparently something to do with them being big and having big heart muscles. But the important thing to note is that it's illegal, a plot point that I actually fuck with, because it means they can't call for help later in the movie when they actually need it at the risk of being arrested. So they fuck around gathering the main characters for half an hour, which include that non-pedophilic child-liking guy from before and some scientist nerd guy who loves dinosaurs. The non-child pred is introduced to us while gambling, drinking, and selling guns illegally. And he's black. So I guess these movies aren't done with their low-key racism yet. And the nerd guy is essentially Claire's character. So if you're keeping count, we have a female version of Owen and a male version of Claire. There's also a bunch of others we meet, but they're all dinosaur food, so who cares? Anyway, after the introductions, we hard cut to some random family on a sailboat. We're told through more text that they're close to the equator, meaning they're gonna get jumped by dinosaurs, which they immediately do after showing the audience how fucking annoying they are by unnaturally spouting exposition about themselves and each other. We learn it's a dad, his teenage and like 10-year-old daughters, and the older girl's boyfriend, who swaps between the worst and best character every scene. Like, he's introduced as this lazy degenerate who doesn't give a shit about anything, but then later on suggests they all smoke weed to pass the time. I do not know any of their names. Anyway, they get jumped and somehow survive, then they get rescued by the main cast, who are then jumped by the same mosasaurs and some spinosaurs as well. This causes the boat to crash and the groups to split up again. We get the same type of bullshit yapping as the start of the movie, but this time in the jungle, and about their feelings instead of their backstories. It's just as stilted and awkward as ever. Also, this island looks distractingly like the sets from Kong Skull Island. Like, it wigs me the fuck out several times. The main group finds the titanosaurs they need that are somehow hiding in chest-high grass, and the family group finds a boat and run from a T-Rex, which is by far the worst action scene in the movie. Like, there's a dead Packy right next to the T-Rex, but it instead decides to chase the family down a river. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that the dinosaurs in Jurassic World are insanely bloodlusted for no fucking reason though, so whatever. I actually have no idea what happens after this. I've completely forgotten, but they do eventually get to the Quetzalcoatlus nests, and this scene is decent as well. Aside from the science man falling off a cliff and surviving because he landed on some leaves and finally in some water, which means just like the previous characters, they have fucking superpowers. Johansson also got some in the form of super strength, but I'll admit it's not nearly as bad as it is with Crispy Rat or Botox Redhead. After this, the groups meet up at the research center where the D-Rex was at the beginning of the movie. They get jumped by the mutants and finally escape on a boat, deciding to give the cure to the whole world instead of getting a paycheck. Also, the dad fucks his ankle early on and is basically completely forgotten about until the plot demands it, which is only like twice. And that's about it. I briefly mentioned the mutant dinosaurs, which are the new thing this movie introduces to the universe and is what is created at the conveniently never before mentioned research center. There's only two types that we see, this weird flying raptor thing and the gigantic D-Rex. In any other franchise, I'd be completely fine with these existing, but in this universe where it's so insistent that the science behind dinosaurs is flawless, mutant dinosaurs like this don't make sense, especially if they were created within 30 years of the original park being created. Fuck that actually, there's a flashback 17 years before the start of Rebirth that shows these things existed back then too. The implication is that they mixed a pterosaur with a raptor and ended up with these flying monstrosities. That is not how crossbreeding works in any sense, which is also the methodology they explain they use. You can't make an eagle and a horse fuck to get a horse with wings. One thing I did like about them though is that there's a scene where one completely destroys a standard raptor, showing us, instead of telling, that these new raptors are a bigger threat than their predecessors. Good job. As with all the world movies, Rebirth has a central antagonist dinosaur that's introduced at the beginning and then acts as a final battle for the main characters to overcome. First we had the Indominus, then the pitiful Indoraptor, and then the completely sinful incontinent cuck that was the Giga. This movie's antagonist dinosaur is the D-Rex, and it's definitely one of the better ones. Not only does it kill several people, unlike the Giga, which demonstrates that it's actually a threat, but its massive size and grotesque appearance add to its horror factor. For me at least, it recaptures that initial creepiness the Indominus had, except this time the D-Rex doesn't really resemble anything familiar, instead more resembling a Muto from Godzilla than a dinosaur. Hey, wait a fucking minute! What's even better is this thing doesn't even die in the end. It doesn't even get hurt, it's just escaped. But not before it fucks up a helicopter, a buggy, and dismembers the evil businessman. It looks the most like a T-Rex being fused to a sauropod. Again, not how crossbreeding works, but as I said, if this was in a different franchise that didn't pretend its science was accurate and flawless, I wouldn't even be mentioning this. And it wouldn't be an Animal Man review of a Jurassic World movie if I didn't get extremely pissed at some dinosaur depiction that didn't even affect the plot, but there was an especially annoying one to me, and it was with the Spinosaurs. They're accurate! Which you'd think would make me happy, but no, because they're right next to the fucking mosasaurs that aren't. Ignoring the fact that there are multiple mosasaurs in this movie, and we've only ever seen one in this franchise before this, so, like, how did it breed? I know I'm not accepting that asexual bullshit Blue did. That's a donkey balls excuse. They're said to be 70 feet long, and the largest mosasaur species at most grew to 56 feet, and that's fucking generous. But supersizing for spectacle is like this franchise's favorite thing to do, even though they're significantly smaller than the one from the earlier movies. Where this gets annoying is the accurate Spinos, because there's already been one in Jurassic Park 3, 24 years ago, and it was accurate to how we thought it looked at the time. I'm not going to rip on it for that because, like, how the fuck would the filmmakers have known it wouldn't be accurate in 20 years? But anyway, the newly updated Spinos show they're actually willing to change depictions based on modern information and not bother explaining the change, except for when they need spectacle. And even then, it doesn't fucking matter because spectacle always takes precedence. Again, in a franchise not insanely insistent its science makes sense and that its dinosaur depictions are accurate to the lore, this would be fine. There was also another inaccurate Dilophosaurus, and they corrected their bullshit with the Quetzalcoatlus too. I'm sure there were plenty more, but I need the movie to release on digital so dinosaur nerds can list all the species names on the Jurassic Park wiki for me to compare them to their real-life counterparts and subsequently rip on. For anyone new, this shit pisses me off because these are blockbuster movies, so every dumb cunt and their ugly-ass mother goes to see them, thinks every depiction is accurate, then comes into my comment sections with their inaccurate information trying to correct me and other people. And by extension, the people who are autistic about this franchise continuously yap about the lore I don't give a fuck about that explains why the dinosaurs are different. And what this depiction change shows is that it was never because of in-universe scientific explanations, but for the sake of spectacle instead. Fuck off. Before we wrap up, there's a few random things I want to shit out that I noticed that don't really fit into the sections from before. One of them was a toy salesosaurus that the little girl finds. It's a terrible looking special effect that only exists to sell toys of it. And sure enough, there's fuck tons. Of course. Fucking hell, its name was Dolores. God, I want to send it into a wood chipper tail first. All the dinosaurs also had like ADHD. Like they'd be locked onto something about to attack a person, and then the slightest noise from far away would distract them, and they'd go after that instead. Honestly reminded me of the clickers from The Last of Us. They also spammed the fuck out of the original Jurassic Park theme, something that normal, happy movie people unlike myself wouldn't notice. But even my friends I saw the movie with acknowledged it and thought it was weird. Also, why is it called Rebirth? What the fuck does this movie have to do with rebirthing? Fallen Kingdom was about the island being destroyed. I guess that kind of makes sense. Dominion was about like global domination, not only by the dinosaurs, but also by the company with the fucking locusts. And this movie is about getting DNA samples. Not very rebirthy. Anyway, that's about all the ranting I can muster for this hunk of shit movie. As I said, it's definitely bad enough to warrant another entry into my Jurassic World series, so stay tuned for that. To summarize, Jurassic World Rebirth wasn't as awful as it could have been, but it was definitely the most boring out of the four, and its action wasn't as good as some scenes in other entries, ultimately making it the most bland of the quadrilogy, and by extension, the most forgettable. I liked the idea of the mutant dinosaurs, but they don't make sense in the context of the universe, making me wonder why they didn't opt for a soft reboot instead. They probably wanted to make a separate story, but needed the Jurassic brand power in order for executives to approve the film. The characters are also nothing special, essentially being gender-swapped recasts of the previous headliners, but at least it agrees that Dominion was dogshit. Alright, I'm out now. If you hated this video, please dislike it and leave an essay in the comments about how I'm wrong and need to end my own life. I probably won't read it, but you never know, I might. Please don't subscribe if you somehow did like this hunk of shit. I would love to remain irrelevant and poor until I die of an overdose tragically young. My new video should be out soon, so get keen for that, I guess. See ya. Wait, hang on. How long after Dominion did this take place? Ah, fuck it. I'll cook this shit in part 4.